The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has continued to echo its position that it has not paid fuel subsidy costs to any oil marketers in the last 9 years. This is coming on the heels of the company's declaration of a profit of 3.297 trillion naira in the 2023 financial year, the highest in 46 years. Arise correspondent Georgina Ndukwe Ezeanka has details.
Long fuel queues have continued to linger in major cities of Abuja and Lagos. Several reasons have been adduced by state-owned oil company, the Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited, as being responsible for the supply shortage, from weather inhibitions to bad road networks. But at this press briefing on its 2023 audited financial statement, NNPC Limited used the opportunity to assure Nigerians that measures are being adopted to address this issue.
Tightness you see in Lagos currently was due to a very short supply gap, which we have since addressed. Vessels are in Lagos now, offloading as I speak, discharging as I speak. So that is definitely short-lived. But a number of these factors sometimes combine to create a nightmarish situation for us. But I can assure you that we're doing everything, we're not leaving any stone unturned in making sure that we get petroleum products to all nooks and crannies of the country.
NNPC Limited's Chief Financial Officer, while addressing journalists at the NNPC Towers, announced that the company had a profit of 3.297 trillion naira at the close of the financial year, which ended in December 2023, an increase of over 700 billion naira, which is 28% when compared to the 2022 profit of 2.548 trillion naira. This is the highest profit declared since the company's inception. Breaking down the figures further, Umar Ajia notes that in 2020, NNPC posted its first profit of 287 billion naira from a loss of 1.7 billion naira in 2019 and 803 billion in 2018. The company recorded a 674.1 billion naira profit in 2022. Now this grew to 2.548 trillion naira.
We had a 23.9 trillion naira revenue or turnover, which resulted in a gross profit of 7 trillion, net operating profit of 4.3 trillion, and profit before tax of 5.9. Consequently, we ended the year with 3.297 trillion naira as profit after tax. On the asset side, because of a sizable amount of receivables, the total assets position stood at 246 trillion naira.
In the midst of several reports of fuel subsidy payments still being paid, Ajia debunks this claim, saying the company was only taking care of the PMS importation shortfall between it and the Federation.
In the last 8 or 9 years, this company, even corporation as it were, has not paid anybody a dime or 1 naira as subsidy. No one has been paid kobo by NNPC as in the name of subsidy. That means no marketer has received money from us by way of subsidy. What has been happening is that we've been importing PMS, landing at a certain price, at a cost price, and government is telling us to sell it at half price. So the delta between that landed price and the half price is what we call shortfall, or call it subsidy. And the deal is between Federation and ourselves to reconcile, and sometimes they give us money, sometimes we do net ops.
With the restructuring of security architecture being undertaken to stem crude oil theft, Executive Vice President Upstream says Nigeria is still on course to attain the target of 2 million barrels per day crude production by the end of the year.
We're doing as low as 1.1 million barrels when these vandals hit us really hard. And because of the intervention, we've been able to ramp up production. Our total production year to date, so I'm taking January on a daily basis, up to today, 15th of August, our total production is 1.558 million barrels per day on an average basis. Now, the CFO said we increased production to as much as 1.751 in August. So this is just a one snapshot represented. But if I'm taking my year-to-date production, is 1.558 million barrels of crude and condensate. The condensate amount there in that volume is 229,000 barrels.
The state-owned oil company has expressed its commitment to sustaining profitability and supporting the attainment of national energy security as stipulated by the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. NNPC Limited also plans to announce its initial public offer once shareholders and the board makes a decision on this. Georgina Ndukwezainka, Arise News.
All right, NNPC posts 46-year record high in profits. Rotus, your take on this story?
I tweeted something out yesterday when we were our radio days in 2021 when NNPC posted its first profits in how many years? That was for fiscal year 2020.
Yeah.
And at that time, what they did was to use some accounting methods to move what was about 47 billion naira worth of receivables that they said were doubtful. They then reversed it and said that, okay, we're actually getting this on the government. There were also one-off items on additional income. How did we know that? We found out because we were able to dig into the financial statements, right? And it took, I remember that we took out a little 15-minute segment where we broke this whole thing down. So for me, this was we cover earnings all the time on the Global Business Report, right? We bring earnings here every single time. When you release your earnings and you put a press statement, actually you release your financials first to the market. That's for publicly traded companies. And then after that, you have an earnings call where you sit down with journalists, with financial analysts, and then they ask you, how did you make this profit? How did your assets grow by this amount? And so on and so forth. It's really odd that they put out a press statement first, and the financials are not yet out. We've reached out. They said the financials will be released today. So it's best for us to get the financials and actually dig in, because like the cash flow statements for NNPC is one of the things you really have to see. Cash flow from operations, because that tells you. And then finally, the dividend of 2 trillion that they've paid versus, the 3 trillion in profit is a high amount of dividends because there's still infrastructure that needs to be worked on. So you have to, a lot of questions that we'll see when it's
dig deeper when we have business.
We'll dig in.
Yeah. All right.
Many questions, but I can see a lot of fallacies. Number one, first fallacy is the fact that you said it's one of the highest records you've recorded, 3 trillion. Just take your calculator, do the division. 2-point-something trillion last year divided by 600 dollar rate last year.
Yep.
And 3-point-something trillion divided by $1,600 rate this year. You will see that in dollar terms, last year was about 4 billion thereabout.
Yep.
Dollars, this year is about $2 billion.
That's right.
So that's a big fallacy. So your record this year was not better than that of last year. In fact, it depreciated because of the devaluation. And that's why we keep talking about devaluation. Secondly, like Ruth said, we would like to see every line item. How did the NNPC make profits when most of their monies were going to subsidy repayment? Anyway, they told another porky yesterday by saying, no, they are just trying to appropriate and adjust their costs. So where did the cable story came from that was saying that the federal government has now given them go ahead that they can use 4 trillion of their dividends, and guess what?
For subsidy.
Their report now came out yesterday to show 3 trillion. So where did all of this financial appropriation come from? That's why we would like to dig into the financial records.
Yeah.
And Ajia saying that in the last 9 years that they've not had to pay subsidy to any marketer, with due respect, no. Subsidies were being paid to marketers. But we would like to dig into the financials when we see them.
Yes, well, like you mentioned, the financials is a key part of today. Anyone can declare profits and talk about 3.26 trillion profits, but the most important thing is how granular the details of the financials, which a number of people have called for NNPCL as an organization to be more transparent with their books. So whilst this is headline good news to say that, 46-year high for NNPCL, the most important thing is how do we arrive there? And of course, Rufai, thank you for making that very excellent point about the devaluation of the Naira and how this affects NNPCL. Remember, they actually said that the financials would be dollar denominated and then translated to Naira. So that's how important it is. Because I know some people might say, but we don't, dollar is not our currency, so let us focus on the Naira. But of course, we know that when it comes to crude oil sales and on the international market, it is dollar denominated, and then we can then bring it down to Naira terms. But again, like we mentioned, we'll talk about this in more detail during the business segment. One other thing I must say that they'd released, which we had asked about, was the details of our responsibilities, our commitments to crude swap. And I think they talked about some of their Project Gazelle and the others, and that they had met those obligations. So those are some of the details that came out yesterday from that meeting. But let's move on to the United States of America, where Vice President Kamala Harris has appeared at the opening night of the Democratic National Convention. She used her debut at the event to praise President Joe Biden for his leadership. He later took to the stage, calling on the party to rally behind Harris as the country's next leader. But outside the event center, thousands of protesters gathered to denounce the Democrats' support for Israel's war on Gaza. Arise News international correspondent Faith Orr reports.
I would like to introduce my father, your 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
It was everyone on their feet as the President of the United States took to the stage to hand over the baton. Joe Biden told the Democratic National Convention that decisions made now will affect the whole world for years to come. He criticised Donald Trump repeatedly and said hate had no place in America.
Donald Trump calls America a failing nation. No, I'm serious. But think about this. Think about this. He publicly says to the whole world, I'm going to say something outrageous. I know more foreign leaders by their first names and know them well than anybody alive. Just because I'm so damn old. But I'm not joking. Think of the message he sends around the world when he talks about America being a failing nation. He says we're losing. He's the loser. He's dead wrong.
The opening night of the convention was full of the party's big names. New York Governor Kathy Hochul, Representative Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, and Senator Chris Coons all urged delegates to rally behind Harris. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton spoke of her hope that the glass ceiling in US politics would finally be smashed.
There was 2016 when it was the honor of my life to accept our party's nomination for president. Nearly 66 million Americans voted for a future where there are no ceilings on our dreams. And afterwards, we refused to give up on America. Millions marched, many ran for office. We kept our eyes on the future. Well, my friends, the future is here.
Kamala Harris surprised delegates by appearing on the stage on the first night of the convention. She thanked Biden for what she called his historic legacy.
Thank you, Joe. And looking out at everyone tonight, I see the beauty of our great nation. People from every corner of our country and every walk of life are here, united by our shared vision for the future of our country. And this November, we will come together and declare with one voice, as one people, we are moving forward.
Palestine will be free. Palestine will be free. From the sea to the river. From the sea to the river.
But in nearby Union Park, thousands of protesters gathered to condemn the support given by the US government for Israel's war in Gaza. More than 40,000 Palestinians have so far been killed in that conflict. People here are demanding an end to the genocide in Gaza. They say the millions being sent to Israel would be better spent in the United States to help people struggling with homelessness, struggling to feed themselves, or simply living paycheck to paycheck.
They just need to do a very simple thing: end the genocide, get a ceasefire, stop the bombing that's going on over there, stop arming Israel with our tax dollars that should be spending over here at home for our Americans, for housing, for infrastructure, for healthcare, education. I mean, the list goes on and on. Us Americans need that money more than they do.
Most of the world recognize Palestine as a state. Why they do not enforce these laws? United Nations laws need to be enforced. And we know for sure United States government have big influence on Israel, and they can do that.
The people here say they cannot vote for a candidate that funds genocide. And that goes for the Republicans as well as the Democrats.
Well, the alternative is either they change their course, Democrats change their course significantly, or we will have to go to, Jill Stein. I mean, a vote third party. I mean, that's where a lot of these people are going to, because it doesn't seem like our message is being, coming across to the Democratic. We want the Democrats to change their course, but if they're not going to, then we have no choice to change our course then.
The American policy when it comes to Israel is the same. They have enough, their influence on either party is enough for them to do the same. That's what I believe. But one message I want to say, the American officials need to listen to the people. The majority is American. Most of the American actually against this genocide, just to stop the genocide.
Demonstrations were mostly peaceful, but some protesters broke through a perimeter security fence, leading to several arrests and police working to clear the area. So the police are trying to clear this park, but what's interesting is the way that they've encircled everyone. If we can just show you here. If we look around here, you can see the lines of police, and they're circling all around the park. There's only a few remaining protesters, but people are now encircled in this park. Democratic Party leaders do not want protests to be the overriding memory of this convention. They're hoping it can be a historic event that leads to the election of America's first woman president. Faith Orr, Arise News, Chicago.
Joining us from Chicago to bring us updates on the DNC Day 1 is Arise international correspondent Adesoa Giwa Osage. Good morning, Adesoa. Good morning. It's still early hours of the morning there.
It's very early.
Good morning. Yes, it's very early. It's 2:30 in the windy city of Chicago.
All right. So tell us,
it's 2 a.m. Fantastic.
We watched the DNC Day 1 convention, and we saw how energetic, the passion of the people, the high-profile speakers for the Day 1. What is the mood in Chicago at an action-packed Day 1 of the DNC?
Well, after Day 1, everyone is very excited here. You walk into the stores, you see people wearing cowboy hats. They say that they're here for Kamala the cowboy. You see Kamala Harris shirts everywhere. You see people in the bars very excited. But obviously, there are two tales to this story, because as you've said, there were pro-Palestinian marches yesterday. There was a perimeter fence that was broken into for a short period of time. There were arrests. I believe 4 people were arrested. Now, the city is slightly tense. There are security agents everywhere. There are police everywhere. You come downstairs, you see the police, but it doesn't feel too heightened. Now, right now, it's very quiet. Everyone's getting ready for an action-packed Day 2.
What was the standout speech from Day 1 of the DNC for you? Which speech broke out? I have a guess as to what you're going to say.
Well, I will have to say that the standout speech for me has to be former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. I do not think I've ever seen her get an applause as the one she did last night, it was always reported that she was going to speak about this proverbial glass ceiling that she was not able to break through, but that she believes Kamala Harris will be able to do so. And she did that in such an impassioned plea. She referenced her own mother, who was born here in Chicago before women had the right to vote. And it shows the progress that can be made in 1, 2, 3 generations of women. And she said that beyond the cracks that many women in American history have made in this glass ceiling, what she sees is freedom, and what she sees is a President, Kamala Harris, taking the oath of office. And the resounding applause in that arena was very special. I would say that a sleeper agent for the speech of the night might be Ashley Biden, who is President Joe Biden's daughter. Her speech made people tear up. She truly honored the president for the sacrifice he's made to America.
Today is day 2 of the DNC, and it's been dubbed as the historic convention. So just tell us how historic this is, with Biden handing over the baton yesterday, a lot of big hitters speaking, attacking Trump on his COVID record yesterday, and feel-good atmosphere, not like what you... I mean, you can't even compare this to the Republican National Convention because there was no unity. Most of the big hitters, the former presidents and chiefs, are not there. I mean, what would you say about this day 2 coming up?
Well, day 2 coming up today, I would say that everyone is excited to see the Obamas. We have former President Barack Obama, the 44th President of America, and his wife, Michelle Obama. They're both expected to take to the stage today. Now, one thing you have mentioned that is very important is the Democrats are showing very uncharacteristic unity, if I will say that. We have all arms of the Democratic Party coming out on stage. Yesterday we had AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out there. We had Biden out there. We had Jill Biden, the First Lady, speak about her son, Beau Biden, who had passed, saying that Kamala Harris was special and one to watch. We had Hillary Clinton. So the Democratic Party is bringing out all the big wigs. They're showing serious unity, especially in the face of the pro-Palestinian protest from the left side of the party to the more centrist side. We're also expecting Bernie Sanders. So honestly, you're very fair to say that we can't compare this to Republican National Convention where we had Hulk Hogan. But I think today we're expecting to get more hard hitters. We have the Chicago hometown heroes of the Obamas, and I expect it's going to be a very exciting day.
All right, excellent. Very quickly, yesterday was said to be Biden Day. What was the mood like when he took the stage and after that powerful speech that he gave? Very briefly. But thank you so much for giving us a great roundup of day 1 of the DNC. Today is day 2, and like she mentioned, we're looking forward to seeing the Obamas on stage and a few other key members of the Democratic Party in the United States of America.